Hey guys, I'm Michael, and I will be talking about the CW's Flash in this episode of the Marvelverse. Wait, is that right? Flash is DC. That's right? Oh. Okay. Roll intro. Yes, we will be talking about DC today, but only to show how bad they are. And although DC is not directly responsible for what happens on the CW's show, the Flash is still a DC character, so I'm still going to blame them. Now, before we start anything else, I will want to say, spoiler alert, if you have not finished Season 1, including the season finale, or if you're just not caught up with what they have out so far, don't watch this, because I'll be mentioning things up to the most recent episode. So, like normal, you've got 5 seconds. Now that we've got those people out of the way, the entire series should not exist. Now, I don't mean the show's bad. I actually really like the show. But I mean that the timeline should not exist. And that is because of a single event that happened in the season finale of Season 1. That one event leads to a infinity loop paradox. But completely ignoring that, the entire show already had a Bootstrap Paradox in the series as a major part. But I'll talk about that later. First, let's focus on the infinity loop paradox. The easiest way to do that is to start at the earliest event in the Flash timeline, which is the year 2000, when Barry's mom gets murdered by the Reverse Flash. After the Reverse Flash finishes this feat, he realizes that he can no longer travel back to the future. So he devises a plan to give the Flash back his speed and then use that speed to get himself back home. His plan involves becoming Harrison Wells and building the particle accelerator 6 years earlier than it should be built. You might be wondering, how did I get those 6 years? Well, the pilot episode, which shows the particle accelerator exploding, was aired in the year 2014. But the particle accelerator wasn't supposed to be launched until the year 2020. Eobard Thawne, Reverse Flash, admits this himself when he's telling Wells,
in the year 2020, you and your wife, Tess Morgan, successfully launched a particle accelerator that changed the course of history. I need it to happen a bit sooner if I'm going to get back. Much sooner.
From that point in 2000, not much really happens until the year 2014 when the particle accelerator explodes and gives Barry his speed, and Season 1 happens, basically. But in the very final episode of Season 1, what happens to the Reverse Flash? Well, Eobard Thawne is a descendant of Eddie Thawne, but then Eddie kills himself, which means that Eobard was never born, and so he gets erased from existence. So that means that he could not have been there to kill Barry's mom in the first place, which means that Harrison Wells would still be alive, which means that the particle accelerator won't explode until the year 2020 like it's supposed to. Which means that Season 1 doesn't happen. Which leads to Season 2 and Season 3, which again shouldn't happen. What happens in major parts throughout the rest of the show? He goes back in time twice to see his mother get killed, finally saving her. But she shouldn't be dead, because Eobard was never born. Do you get what I'm saying here? The guy who kills the mom is now dead, is now erased from existence. He was never there to begin with, which means the mom should be alive. I'm kind of restating this, but I really want to get this point across. The first season and the rest of the show shouldn't have happened. Yes, Barry would still get his speed in the year 2020, but even that is not necessarily true. I mean, what happens in Flashpoint? Barry's mom is still alive, which means that Wally gets the speed. So maybe he won't get his powers? This possibility leads to the infinity loop paradox. The infinity loop paradox is the idea that Each timeline alternates between two or more possibilities, which means that it's stuck in that cycle and can go no further. The infinity loop that is in The Flash is that Eddie kills himself and erases Eobard from existence. So why does Eddie kill himself? Because Eobard's about to kill everyone else. But if Eobard's never born, then Nora Allen never gets killed, so Eddie doesn't really have a reason to kill himself, which means that time plays out. Eobard's born, goes back in time, kills Nora Allen. Season 1 happens. Eddie kills himself. Eobard's erased. Nora doesn't die. Season 1's erased. Eddie doesn't kill himself. Eobard is born. Do you get where I'm going with this? It doesn't end. It's just an infinity loop. Hence the name. The other paradox that is in The Flash, which is not nearly as major, but is still interesting, is the Bootstrap Paradox. The Doctor explains this paradox really well, so I'm just gonna let him do it.
So there's this man, he has a time machine. Up and down history he goes, zip, 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 getting into scrapes. Another thing he has is a passion for the works of Ludwig van Beethoven. And one day he thinks, what's the point of having a time machine if you don't get to meet your heroes? So, off he goes to 18th century Germany. But he can't find Beethoven anywhere. No one's heard of him. Not even his family have any idea who the time traveler is talking about. Beethoven literally doesn't exist. This is called the Bootstrap Paradox. Google it. The time traveler panics. He can't bear the thought of a world without the music of Beethoven. Luckily, he brought all of his Beethoven sheet music for Ludwig to sign. So he copies out all the concertos and the symphonies, and he gets them published. He becomes Beethoven.
So there's the Bootstrap Paradox. If you want to know a little bit more, then just do what he said, Google it. But to summarize, it's getting an idea from a future version of yourself. Just like that time traveler getting all of Beethoven's stuff from a future version of himself who is actually in the past. It's kind of confusing, but you might understand it when I apply it to The Flash. In the season finale, Barry goes back in time to save his mom, but a future version of himself is telling him not to. We know it's a future version because he had the white symbol. And Barry, at this point, does not have that white symbol. But what happens later in Season 2? They change the outfit to have that white symbol. Where did Barry get that idea? From a future version of himself. If he hadn't seen that, the symbol probably would have stayed red. The only reason he changed it is because he saw himself with another symbol. That is the Bootstrap Paradox in The Flash. I could talk about some other paradoxes in The Flash, but none of those would exist if DC had just fixed the Infinity Loop paradox. That's all I really have to say about this. As you can see, I look into stuff way too much, but I'm just a nerd, so that's me. Hope you have enjoyed this video. Hope you stay tuned to see in the next episode of The Marvel